this video, we're going to look at scapular protraction and upward rotation strength specific to the serratus anterior muscle. A lot of people with anterior shoulder pain struggle to produce force through the serratus anterior and maintain the serratus anterior's function as we move overhead, because it's not only a scapular protractor, but it's also an upward rotator of the scapula. And when we move through the initial stages of shoulder flexion, we have to couple that scapular protraction with upward rotation. And once we lose that, we'll see this compensatory internal rotation at the humerus to help guide the scapula into upward rotation and elevation. If I show you rotation in this plane of motion, if I externally rotate, what naturally wants to happen is the scapula will depress. If I internally rotate, notice how it wants to elevate and hike at the scapula. So that's more of a compensatory motion. Of course, internal rotation of the humerus is important for getting full shoulder flexion overhead, but we want to delay that as long as possible until the very end stages where the thoracic spine has to extend and the scapula has to tip backwards to afford that space. So I'm going to show you two progressions of drills we can use to strengthen the serratus anterior, specific to maintaining upward rotation and protraction as we move into greater levels of shoulder flexion. Ideally, we want to get to around 130 to 150 degrees of shoulder flexion, being able to maintain some degree of humeral external rotation before this internal rotation occurs. Of course, this type of compensation can also be secondary to tightness in the shoulder extensors like the lats and the teres major, but oftentimes we also have an inability to produce force through the serratus anterior, especially under load, and we lose that very easily. So if you do have shoulder pain, especially when going overhead, don't just focus on your rotator cuff drills, look at the serratus anterior. Okay, progression one is going to be on the wall. So I'm going to position my forearm in supination, palm facing me, and I'm going to keep the elbow in line with the hand. Now we're doing this unilateral here, one side at a time, so we can manipulate the thoracic spine to get more out of the serratus anterior and shorten that muscle. So I'm going to move into as much shoulder flexion as I can before any sort of outward deviation of the elbow occurs, or I lose that supination, or my thoracic spine wants to turn away. So maybe I'll set up here, about 100 degrees. Then I'm going to turn my sternum slightly toward the elbow, and now I'm going to perform some scapular retraction and protraction in this slight bit of shoulder flexion. Okay, so when I'm protracting, I want to make sure I'm not rotating away. I'm keeping this shoulder in line with this one. Okay, so most scapular protraction drills, they're done here with the hand directly across from the shoulder, but I want to position in just a bit more shoulder flexion here, just to get a bit more specific to the function of the serratus anterior as we move into upward rotation. And you're going to feel a much stronger activation here under the armpits. So I'm going to go for about high reps here. Once you could get about 20 reps without so much fatigue, we can either move into more flexion, or we can then transition to going on the ground. Okay, so I'm going to set up in quadruped, elbow directly under the shoulder to start, and then from here, I'm just going to move back. Okay, so maintaining this alignment at the elbow, the shoulder, and the hand. And I can have this hand here for support. So again, move into retraction, protraction. If this is easy, we can start to move the knees back as well. Get a little bit more core involvement, but that's also not the point. Eventually, we want to be able to get onto the hand. Now, the problem with the hand flat on the ground is we're in this pronated position, which is going to drive some internal rotation. So if that is a compensation for you, then what you could do is just simply turn the hands out slightly. So the index finger is facing maybe 45 degrees to the outside. And this drives a little bit of external rotation and prevents some of that early upward rotation of the scapula. So I'm setting up in a bit of shoulder flexion here. And then here we go, going through the scapular retraction and protraction. I can even go up onto my toes for a bit more intensity here. Try not to lose that elbow position as you retract the scapula. So I'm already getting quite a bit of fatigue happening through my serratus anterior. Okay, just really trying to just use this hand for balance and not really offloading here. But go slow with these reps. I recommend not just pumping through them like I just did. Hold the top. Really feel that shortened contraction of the serratus anterior. 1, 2, 3. Pull the elbow pit forward as well. Now what you can do is retest your overhead position, and it should feel much more stable and less restricted. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more.